roll call.
Okay, can you all hear me okay?
We
Yes,
can.
Okay, I'm in the office, so there might be a little background noise, but I'll keep myself muted as much as possible. Committee member Baranek,
Oh, hold on, she's in, looks like in the attendees. Let me promote her to a panelist.
Thank you.
I'll go down for the other ones. Committee member Schmidt,
yes,
committee member Van den Eyck,
Yep.
vice chairperson Funk,
Here.
chairperson Newsom,
Here.
and committee member Baranek.
Here.
Got it. Thank you so much. 5
Thank you.
present.
Okay, can I get an approval of the agenda?
So move?
I'll second.
You need a roll call.
Okay, vice chairperson Funk,
Here, yes.
committee member Schmidt.
Yes, is that me?
Yep, committee member Baranek,
Yes.
committee member Van den Eyck,
Yes.
chairperson Newsom.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. At this time, I'm going to open it up to public comment. That's going to be for anything that is not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand if you're in our webinar. And if you're calling in, I think it's what, *9 to.
Yes, that's correct.
And let me see who we have from our attendees. Looks like we got 15 attendees. Is anybody here for public comment to speak on anything other than the items on the agenda? Please raise your hand or click the little hand icon in the webinar. And if you're calling in, it's going to be *9. Looks like I don't have. Oh, here we go.
Yes, it looks like we have a phone number ending in 8625. If you unmute yourself, you can speak at public comment.
Hi, my name's Raina Pesh, and I own a home at the end of Madera Place. I have never been on one of these forums before, so I think I'm doing this right. I wasn't able to get on Zoom, but I am a little concerned about the parking situation and turning on and off to get onto Madera Place with the new build. It looks like each house only has like one parking spot.
So I believe this is related to an item that's coming up second on our agenda.
Okay.
So if you are able to stay on the phone long enough, we'll have comment at that time. But if you're not able to stay on, I think we've noted the comment. We can discuss that at that time.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that's wanting to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Can I get an approval of the consent calendar?
So move.
Motion to approve.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Great. I would like to make just one small change. I need to remove the word committee in front of Vice Chairperson Funk's name in the motion on the last set of minutes. Do you all concur with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll do roll call. Committee member Baranek,
Yes.
committee member Van den Eyck,
Yes.
committee member Schmidt,
Yes,
vice chairperson Funk,
Yes.
chairperson Newsom.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. All right, on to the development project review. Our first item is going to be review of regional accessory dwelling unit stock plans. I'm not sure who's presenting.
All right,
so-
actually, I will be introducing Lorelei, and Lorelei will be introducing our architectural team, and they're going to share a presentation with us today.
Thank you, Phil.
Take it away, Lorelei. I think you're muted. Hold on.
Ryan, if you just let me know who needs to be promoted, who'll be doing a presentation and talking.
Sure, it's myself and Omar, Alexandra, and Shamili.
Perfect. Can you all see me? Okay, so yes, today we are here to talk about the Central Coast Regional Pre-Approved Accessory Dwelling Unit, otherwise known as ADU project. As you know, in 2020, the city's housing element was adopted, and out of that came programs to promote new residential development, make it easier for development. And so promoting ADU construction is kind of seen as an affordable but by design style of housing. And by creating this project, which I'll get into the background on it, you will basically be able to, a resident in an applicable area will be able to develop take the stock plans from the cities that are teaming on this project and kind of streamline the process, which will save cost and time in the pre-construction phase. So this project is being funded by a grant that was made possible by AB 101, signed into law in 2019, and it kind of allocated $8 million in housing for our region. The money is being administered by Monterey Bay Area Governments, otherwise known as AMBAG, and our local contact is SLOCOG. And they are basically, they sent out kind of a ability to apply for the grants, and we, Atascadero, joined with 3 other jurisdictions, Arroyo Grande, River Beach, and Morro Bay, to apply for the REAP grant, which is called the Regional Early Action Planning Program. And we applied for a grant for $181,000 to bring on a team to help support this project. We went through a RFP process, and I'll tell you a little bit about our team in just a moment. But really the whole intent of this application was to allow for these ready to build plans for eligible property owners that will expedite the process and make it easier for Atascadero residents and the residents of the other communities. The plans that will be developed are going to be available for all residents from all 4 communities, and the end product really is envisioned of 6 different floor plans or lots or actual footprints of different sizes with 4 different types of architectural style that meets kind of all of our community's needs and can be used interchangeably amongst our communities. So today we're here to talk a little bit about the preliminary plans, and we're seeking DRC input on the plans to be considered, and all of the input that will be received today will be taken and put alongside all of the other communities' input and incorporated in every way that it can be into the revised ADU plans, which will be probably ready in spring of next year. So I'd like to kind of take a moment and talk about our consultant team. The city of Atascadero is administering this project on behalf of the 4 cities. We're the acting PM. We issued an RFP in the spring, and we came together and interviewed several organizations that came together and bid on this project. We hired the Architecture workbench team, and their proposal included 4 main phases of this project, which are conceptual design, schematic design, which is the phase we're in right now, design development, and construction documents. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Ryan Brockett of Brockett Architecture, otherwise known as Brockitecture. Take it away.
All right, thank you, Lorelei. We're going to be sharing a presentation as well to you. And but I'll introduce myself. So I'm Ryan Brockett, architect, local architect based in Templeton. I have a small practice and do work throughout the county, including each of the 4 cities that are part of this program as well. The program we're presenting to you is really a team-based approach. I mean, you could tell by the different cities. We've had meetings all together and also spoken to cities individually. We're going to be presenting to all 4 cities in this type of review process. We also enlisted a team approach to our project, enlisted friends of mine through Workbench based in Santa Cruz, a design build firm, and Meta Urban Design, urban and landscape and graphics as well too. So we've all been on these kind of big group meetings talking about this project together. We've had internal charrettes, design work, and that's part of the presentation we're going to share with you about how we got to this point and the work we have. This is also a work in progress. I think Lorelei mentioned that. We're really reviewing with all 4 cities, trying to elicit more feedback. From here, we engage with our further consultant team, mainly structural engineering, to develop the designs, submit a building permit, submittal process, and plan check review with the cities before these are actually issued and released and available for the public. But we're excited to be here. We're excited to be selected for this program. We're thrilled by the idea of providing more affordability and accessibility to residents of the county, to provide additional housing in their own backyards.
Ryan, could I also just jump in really fast? Kelly, could you elevate Alexandra Sklar to a panelist, please?
Yes, good call. I'm passing the baton to Alexandra next. So
She'll be right after Ryan. Yeah, we want to make sure she's in here.
Yeah. Okay, I think Alexandra is in here now. So, and so Omar, you're controlling the slides, correct? Okay. All right. Well, I think we go through some of these. I think I've already kind of presented a little bit of this process information. Again, Workbench. They have been doing similar projects with a few cities, Seaside, Capitola, and Milpitas. Okay, and then those cities are actually further along and have been developing and using this program. Just a little bit of our background information and context. We dove into each of the 4 cities, analyzed their zoning regulations, constraints, opportunities within each of the cities as far as common lot sizes, setbacks, and really how this program could be customized for the 4 cities here. So we, instead of taking kind of an overview approach, we really try to tailor it to best use and best fit. So there's more, probably a higher use and availability to residents here. Okay. And some of the things we looked at as we were exploring these ADUs, which are essentially small dwellings ranging from 300-400 square feet up to 1,000 square feet, is efficiency of layout of plans, organization of spaces, mixing in the ideas of studios versus 1 or 2 bedrooms based on the uses. If it's a family member, a renter, kind of just a lot of variety of uses here. Again, flexible spaces so that this one common plan possibly could be used in different ways depending on who is living in the space. Also privacy and outdoors, knowing that these ADUs are part of an existing infrastructure of housing, how these impact the current residents of the site. Are these people are going to be living in their backyard that they know? Do we need to orient and provide additional privacy depending on how their lot is configured or the size of the lot? So a lot of variety here. Again, Lorelei mentioned we're at 6 floor plan options, which will have 4 exterior design options each that we'll share. Again, this graphic shows how the different cities, and when we did our research and presented with them, which cities would best use the different kind of varieties of sizes here. You see far left, Morro Bay was gravitating to more of the smaller size ADUs based on their site configurations and use. Tascadero on the other end of the spectrum to the right would be more of the kind of larger unit types. Okay. And from here, this is part of our kind of mirror board and charrettes that we did both internally, some of the work that we started sharing with the cities as far as programming, unit size, unit layout, really trying to explore a lot of options, also looking at existing precedents of ADUs that we have all designed locally or in Santa Cruz, and also other options that are currently out there. And as you can see, we're going to explain our kind of 6 types. Became this big matrix of a variety of options we could use to try to have some similarities within this program and the expansion with the different sizes. So we looked at different typology of plans, such as a bar plan, a T plan, an L plan, and a block plan. And those kind of became basis of these 6 plans, and they kind of all morphed from each other. Okay. So I'm going to pass the baton on here to Alexandra. We're going to go over our unit floor plan options, and then eventually we'll share with you some of the elevation and massing styles for these plans. Okay, Alexandra.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to walk through the 6 floor plans that we've landed on and kind of some of the benefits we see in each. As Ryan mentioned, we did a lot of exploration to kind of find a base model that could then grow throughout the program, grow in size, but that there would be some similarities between each of the different size ADUs. So this matrix that you're looking at shows the 6 units, which range from an efficiency at 315 square feet up to what we're calling a 2-bedroom plus, and that is targeted to be at 1,000 square feet. And that would be have 2 bedrooms and then a flex space that could also be a 3-bedroom. And then within that, we have a larger studio, a 1-bedroom, a 1-bedroom plus, and a 2-bedroom. So along with the cities, we did a lot of work thinking about both the sites and the considerations for each of the jurisdictions, and also how people were going to live in these, what sorts of uses we're going to have out of ADUs, and try to really cover a wide base of potential homeowner needs out of this set of floor plans. Next one, please, Omar. Thank you. Okay, so starting with our efficiency unit, this is our tightest, smallest unit. It's under 25 feet wide, about 13.5 feet deep. Basically, you walk in, you're in the living space. It has an efficiency kitchen, does have some optional space for a washer dryer in the bathroom area if that's desired. And then starting to carve out some space on the exterior wall on the right side there, Omar, where we could have a nook for a bed. And also starting to create a little bit of an outdoor dedicated porch. So it's not just a pure box, but it's also as tight and as efficient as can be for some of those smaller yards. Then our next one is a studio that steps up in size, 445 square feet. In this one, we have really a dedicated sleeping alcove that functions as a room. Little bit of a larger living area and kitchen, and again, optional washer dryer that's in a dedicated space, so not shared with the bathroom. You'll also see here, we've started to think about where exterior doors could go as an option. So we have created a private outdoor front porch that's a little bit recessed, but we also have a back door option, which depending on the site or the materials chosen, someone could have a backdoor access and then utilize their side yard of their ADU for a little garden space. So trying to think about where we can place windows and doors to give some flexibility in the end to the homeowners. Excuse me. Okay, 1-bedroom unit. Here you'll see we've continued with our kitchen, bathroom in the core of the building. One thing we did on all the units was really organize all the plumbing along one wet wall, trying to keep it as efficient as possible, both in construction and then also we're not running pipes throughout the building. So that kind of became the core of each of the ADUs, and we built from there. In the 1-bedroom, see again, we have the recessed entry with the living area. There is room for a sliding door here at the back of the unit. We also have a small back porch with some potential storage space outside, so people could, protect their bikes, or again, have a little gardening table out of view of the primary homeowner in the primary home, and creating some protected outdoor space. This one has a dedicated full 1-bedroom. We also have made the bathroom a little bit larger for everyday living and moved the laundry out into kind of a utility space where you could have a laundry, washer, dryer, countertop underneath or over them, some cabinets underneath, above. And, potentially if a homeowner didn't want a washer dryer in here, this could be a great closet space. It could be a great home office desk space, but really trying to utilize all the hallways and corners of the building. Going to our 1-bedroom plus, we're calling this a plus because it could either be a 1-bedroom with a really expanded living area, or that living area could be converted to a second bedroom. We've kept with our same module for the kitchen, laundry room, laundry bathroom area, and then extending to the right for the 1 bedroom plus. Up to the 2 bedroom, here you'll see the second bedroom is added in the same area as the first, private doors to each. And because of the exterior articulation of the building, we've created a bit of a back patio, back porch, which I think would be really wonderful space, you know, and such a benefit to have an ADU where you could have some private space for the outside. We have done here a little bit of an expanded living room as well. So potentially some different furniture arrangements that could happen in there. And then up to our 2 bedroom plus, this is our largest unit, and it is the one we're still resolving. Primarily, Atascadero is the city that's most interested in this size and sees the most use out of it on your lot sizes. So we're working with Kelly. The target here is to get it at 1,000 square feet. So we're slightly over, and what we're thinking here is right now we have a 2 bedroom plus, so there will be, you know, the same thing as the smaller units, a space that can either be a living area or an additional bathroom and bedroom. We are working to figure out the final dimensions of this one in particular to make sure it does fit a wide range of lots. So likely this will change from this kind of L shape into more of a U shape, but fundamentally will be quite close to the other units in the program once we resolve that last little bit. So for this one, 1,000 square feet, 2 to 3 bedrooms, really becomes like a small home. You can see there's room for a larger kitchen that potentially even has an island. If you have the version that is just a 2 bedroom, you could have an island, a dining area, and a living room. There could be a place for a work from home office, which a lot of people are looking for. And then again, really great protected outdoor space in the back. So here's just kind of a recap of where we settled with the units. We've done quite a bit of review with all 4 of the cities and their representatives, and feel really good about where these are landing and getting resolved as far as fitting the lot sizes in the different jurisdictions, as well as fitting the needs of their community, whether it be for, you know, truly an in-law suite or a full-size house or an efficiency studio. And then you'll just see over here is kind of a recap of length and width, general dimensions on the sides, on the side, and then where the sleeping areas are contained, as well as if it has an efficiency kitchen or a full-size kitchen.
And I wanted to jump in just before we move on to architecture, from the city standpoint, that we were a little bit specific about some of the square footages. I think as the DRC members and the public may recall, state law allows second units that are under 750 square feet to be exempt from development impact fees. And so we were really key on making sure that we had some units that fit that category, which would, you know, help with cost savings for people adding these units to their lots.
Great, thank you. Yes, excellent point. Thanks, Kelly. Okay, and with that, I'm going to pass it along to Omar. He's going to talk about how we've taken these 6 floor plans and are starting to apply some different architectural styles to them so they can fit in a variety of backyards. Omar, take it away.
Thank you. All right, so we started this process by looking at sort of the Central Coast, which is a big region, right? So we had the tough task of trying to identify architectural styles that could blend in all of these communities and cities. And so looking around, we were able to identify 4 styles that we think could fit into the 4 different cities. And that is the Coastal Ranch, the Backyard Craftsman, the California Modern, and the Beach Bungalow. And each of these sort of have different defining characteristics, are sort of have some characteristics in common, but could each find their home in the Central Coast. And so our task was to take the 6 floor plans and develop 4 architectural styles for each of the plans. And to start this process off, we selected just 2 of the plans to develop for this initial review. And then moving forward, we'll continue the process with the rest of the floor plans. So today we'll look at the studio that's around 450 square feet and the largest unit which is the 2-bedroom plus, which is around 1,000 square feet. And looking at sort of the biggest and almost the smallest, I think it'll give us an idea of what the rest of the unit types will look like moving forward. And so this is a pass at the Coastal Ranch. And so you'll see below we've highlighted some of the things that we're excited about. So this is the same floor plan in all of these iterations, the studio on the left and the 2-bedroom plus on the right. Here we're showing a sort of board and batten siding and windows kind of articulated, similar to how you might see on a ranch or in a farmhouse situation. One of the unique opportunities of this style that we're excited about is built-in front porches or back porches. That's a kind of language that occurs on that type of architecture that we would like to incorporate into this style of unit. The next one we'll look at is the backyard Craftsman. Craftsman can mean a lot of things. Here we've taken one pass at what the Craftsman iteration could look like. So here we're seeing horizontal siding with some shingle above, an idea of really big, well-defined exterior trim, sort of ornamental articulation on the windows. And then some of the things we're excited about is opportunities to really customize this style. So you could have these sort of eave brackets, different roof overhangs, articulated columns. There's all kinds of colors that Craftsman come in. And so just by providing sort of the canvas to paint on, we think that people will be able to really make this fit into their backyard. The next one is the California Modern, which is also kind of a broad brush style to try and accommodate. Here, our definition of modern is sort of clean lines, simple aesthetic. In this version, you'll see we're proposing a shed roof on the smaller unit. And so there'll be a version that comes with a gable roof and a version that comes in a shed roof. Here we're showing stucco as the exterior finish material, so just really plain and simple. One of the things we're excited about is ideas about screening. So when we provide these outdoor spaces that are associated with the ADUs, there's all kinds of different iconic screening elements that can define the era of modern we're looking at. And that's a really exciting opportunity for us. And then lastly is the beach bungalow style. This one is sort of trending towards the modern and contemporary, but we think there's still a lot of opportunity to customize this and make it really match in with sort of the context that the ADU might land in. And so again, on the studio size, we're looking at a shed roof. And then on the 2-bedroom plus, it goes to a gable. And again, on this one, large expanses of glass, sort of horizontal siding. I think the one thing about beach bungalows that is really exciting and iconic potentially is the bright colors. And so, you know, there's opportunities here to pick a siding material and a paint finish that matches your aesthetic. And then, you know, just large expansive panes of glass for those beautiful beach views we all wish we had. And so here's just a summary of all those studio styles sitting next to each other: the Coastal Ranch, the Backyard Craftsman, the California Modern, and the Beach Bungalow. All will have the same floor plan. These are just 4 exterior styles that you can choose from. And then again, with the 2-bedroom plus, same exercise, keeping in mind that, you know, the actual colors and finishes are really up to the homeowner. We'll just be providing sort of the base details for getting that, you know, the canvas of the ADU for them to really customize for their own yard. And then another really exciting part of the process, which is going to be fun for us, is we'd like to provide a sort of sample style guide where we can kind of take this floor plan and the exterior design and just show 3 options of how to customize this one style in different ways, but still be true to the style. And the goal is really to help homeowners, you know, accomplish the authentic craftsman they're after, or to really define their California bungalow, beach bungalow as seen. So here we've got a clean and contemporary version, sort of a classic bungalow, and sort of a more natural one. And I think by just, you know, changing these few exterior finish materials, you see how wide ranging the overall aesthetic and impact of the units can be. And so I will pass it now to Jamili to talk about next steps.
Thank you, Omar. So like mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're going to be doing a similar presentation to the rest of the jurisdictions next week and through the end of the month. And then ideally after that, we'll gather any comments or thoughts and work with the planners in each of the cities that we're working on and make any minor tweaks or things that we need to do. And then we'll be moving forward into design development. So we'll be doing more of the detailing, starting to think about all the stuff that actually has to go into the construction document package and into the application package for residents. And then working on the construction documents. A big piece of the project is going to be done with Meta Urban Designs. Samantha will be putting together informational packets and informing the cities on how to kind of what information to put on websites and what information to make available to homeowners. And it won't just cover the prototype program. It'll also cover just building an ADU in general. So homeowners can have a really great informational guide on what is a junior ADU, what is an ADU, what are the requirements in each of the jurisdictions and where do they go to find information? And then what are the approval processes for that? So that will really start in earnest after the new year. And then I think Lorelei or Kelly mentioned earlier, we're aiming to have these, done and ready for homeowners sometime in mid 2022. I have to keep catching myself on the year 2022. So I think a lot of our design work will be done by the spring, and we'll be going through the review and building department review process. So those are the next steps.
All right, thanks team. So there you have it. It's overview of what we've been working on. Again, trying to explore as many options to try to maximize the highest and best use for this program to roll out to all 4 of your cities moving forward. So we welcome all your feedback and comments for this program so we could help develop this further and roll this into our updated revisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, at this time, we'll open it up for staff questions. I do have one question right off the bat for Phil. Are you still with us?
I'm here.
All right.
Right here.
So my biggest question is going to be is how does the SB 9 impact that in the council's decision to put the emergency ordinance?
It doesn't have any really impact on this. If people want to use these stock plans to build an SB 9 unit, I believe they could still do that. When we started this program, we didn't know SB 9 was coming. The idea was to have pre-approved plans, and I think that the intent is that they get used for ADUs, which are similar to the SB 9 units. And yeah, it's kind of a good question. We should talk with our team. What if someone wants to come in and use one of these plans, not to build an ADU, not to build an SB 9 unit, but just to build their house? Let's say they want a 1,000 square foot house and they want to use this stock plan. I don't think we've talked about, whether we're going to restrict it to just ADUs and SB 9 units, or how we're going to do that, or whether we're just going to have these available, to be able to create these, ready to go designs for a multitude of uses. So that's kind of an interesting, it broaches an interesting topic that we should talk amongst our team and see whether there's any restrictions. I don't know if anybody else from my team has any other ideas about that.
Yeah, I think we did, envision them being available as stock plans, sort of for anybody that wants to come in. And so we do see a lot of these plans as hitting that affordability by design component. So a lot of these are geared towards backyard units, but as we see smaller lot subdivisions and projects like the micro home development, as we see more of those come through, some of the sort of the smaller model homes, I think, could be a realistic fit for helping to make that happen, and helping to make that happen in an even more affordable way if we have some of the upfront design work completed already.
And the other thought is too, since there's several designs here that are less than 800 square feet, even with our urgency ordinance that speaks to SB 9, those designs are going to fit. At some point, yeah, we may come back to you with a permanent ordinance that allows some flexibility on larger lots, but still, nevertheless, that still gives you 4 designs that fit that description under the urgency ordinance.
Okay, and then the next question is once this comes through DRC, does it go up to council for approval, or does it just stay with the
There's
design
no
review?
there's no real approval. It's kind of interesting. So what we're doing today is getting your feedback. But we have to keep in mind there's 3 other cities that are giving feedback as well. And so it's a little complex. There's not really an approval process other than the construction permit process. So this is really the only opportunity for the DRC to weigh in, provide comments. The other cities will weigh in. Hopefully we'll get to some happy medium. Then we'll come with a final design. We'll go through a construction permitting process to make sure they can be permitted in our community. And we may give the city council an update as to where the designs are, but it won't be for an approval or denial process. It's here's what they are, sort of thing.
And I think it's important to note, especially to some of the public listening in on the meeting, that these are stock plans and these are an option, and we're trying to help streamline these smaller units. But anybody has the option to do a custom design second unit. You're not limited to these choices. You can still go out and have your own designers and design your own unit. And so I think there would be an approval process if we were saying they have to be one of these, but this is literally just an option provided to people to help streamline and make things more cost effective if they need that route.
Good point.
Thank you for that clarification, Kelly. Okay, we'll go on to committee questions for staff. And you're not all in my square, so I see Dennis first.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And am I on? Yeah, I am. And my questions are probably bridged from both the city staff and the ADU staff. And I'm just going to go down the line. And I was originally really glad to hear from our city about the idea of using these for SB9 or for any type of project. And I think they should be available for all types of projects that someone might want to use in our community. I was generally, in terms of the team, the project team, was there any discussion about the occupancy of these units beyond, for instance, on the smaller units? I see a bathtub, and I have a lot of experience with permitting ADUs in Monterey, San Luis Obispo, and Santa Barbara County. Probably 50 to 70 homes I've permitted over the last couple of years. And it seems to me a lot of the occupants are people who are building these or wanting these are older people who are wanting to move out of their house so their children can move into their primary home, and then they can live in the second in the ADU. And so I'm seeing bathrooms with bathtubs, and I'm wondering if there's been any discussion about how convenient that would be for older people to use as they get older. And stepping over that tub is sometimes hard for people to do. I heard a lot of terms, expedite, streamline, pre-approved. I think I did hear from Ryan the word structural. So eventually these plans will have structural design as part of the package. And I hopefully that's going to occur.
Yes.
Again, I know that you're shooting for a range of views with 4 different communities. My experience has been that almost everyone who wants an ADU wants 1,200 square feet, and they're going to max that out to the greatest level. In our city, 1,200 square feet is measured end to end. In Santa Barbara County, it's the airspace. So you can subtract out a 6-inch wall around the building, and you end up with an outside dimension, let's say, that has 1,230 square feet. But when you subtract out the closet for the water heater, and you subtract out the walls, you can get it down to 1,200 square feet. And almost exclusively, everyone is wanting 1,200 square feet. I did not see in the floor plans, and again, it might not be to that level, if they're going to be electric or gas served in terms of utilities. I didn't see a closet for a water heater in any of these. And so I don't know what direction that's going. I mean, there is a lot of discussion going on now about, and so I think New York City is talking about outlawing new buildings from having gas and moving strictly to electric. Fire sprinklers. Will these plans come with fire sprinklers? Now, with an ADU, we all know that that's a kind of a term that's applicable if the primary has fire sprinklers, the ADU must. If the primary doesn't, the ADU doesn't need to have it. However, if we open up these units to other uses like SB9 units, or even someone who wants a primary home at a smaller scale, fire sprinklers would be important. And so I'm wondering that will these plans come with a fire sprinkler design? Again, under the terms we're using expedite, streamline, pre-approved. And I was happy to hear the last discussion about providing information to applicants so they know kind of exactly when they start looking at these pre-approved plans what they're getting into and what the permitting process is going to be within the community in which they are. And there are obviously going to be things that are not included in the package that are needed. I mean, silly things like fees, school fees. I mean, just to let people know there are going to be some fees that are going to be associated with these plans, even though they're pre-approved. Foundations, and I'm kind of wondering about if foundation design is going to be incorporated into this. And one of the ways that it could be incorporated into it is to treat these almost like a manufactured home, where manufactured homes have pre-approved foundation plans, but they're designed for a low or no expansion index. So it's very low. And so what happens is that in those projects, when your property has an expansion index of 68 or so, then your soils engineer will get involved and provide a design of over excavation and recompaction with a non-expansive material. So that foundation then can be applicable and used for that particular project. So I'd be interested in knowing if, along with the structural, along with the fire sprinklers, would foundations also be included kind of in that manner. Stormwater management. I've noticed on a lot of the homes, there was, at least at this point, little to no eaves in some situations. Almost every project, in fact, every project has to, when you add up all the impervious area, if there's going to be a driveway, there's going to be other things, you might exceed that 2,500 square foot threshold. And was there any thought or thinking about how these units might be affected by stormwater management plans? And then lastly, I think there was an answer on this. I guess it's not quite last, but almost every unit had horizontal siding. And I guess it would be up to an applicant if they get the building, if they wanted to have vertical siding, they could easily just turn that off as they construct the unit. I mean, there's nothing saying that everything has to be horizontal if it's a pre-approved package, I would assume. Lastly, for our community, and I don't know about the others, I don't know if we have a development impact fee for an ADU or for an SB9. And so in the past, we have taken the least of our development impact fees and have applied it to ADU units. And now I think we kind of proportionally deal with that depending on the size of the building. But I would encourage an AB 1600 study to establish a development impact fee for ADUs for any of these buildings. So there would be something there versus what we have. And that's what I have. Thank you.
I think I can take a stab at the architectural questions if you guys would like me to.
Yes, please. And I can go
Okay.
ahead and route the rest of the questions. I've taken notes on Dennis's items. So why don't you jump in and start on the consultant side, Jamila?
Okay. So for the kind of age in place and accessibility issues, we've our intention is that these will really be able to be fairly customized by homeowners. So there'll be some restrictions in terms of where structural system is, but for example, if that bathroom wall needed to shift over 6 inches or a foot in order to give more room for a roll-in shower or better hardware on the doors or things like that. Like things like those kinds of accommodations could be made. The tubs are shown as a placeholder. They could very easily be a shower instead. Our intention is to put some different ideas in the packet or in the material, at least that goes out to people so that they, that gets them thinking. They're not necessarily stuck with exactly what's shown on the drawing. The structural system will be designed and engineered and all the plumbing and mechanical and stuff like that. So changes will have to be made within reason, but our hope is that they're fairly flexible. If someone wants to add a closet or something like that, like that's going to be pretty easy for them to do with just a field inspection sign.
Or even remove a closet and put up an armor on instead. Or else. So
exactly.
I'm glad to hear about the flexibility. That's excellent.
On the structural system, we have had a lot of conversation about the foundation, both with the jurisdictions as well as internally. And I think our solution will be something like what you're suggesting, where we've designed like a pretty robust foundation that is for kind of the worst case scenario. But within the budget that we have for structural engineering, we will do as much as we can in order to make these as flexible and usable as possible.
I would suggest doing it like the manufactured home, because that then it allows for the soils report, which every project's going to be required to have. To again come in with a recommendation of over excavation and recompaction with a non-expansive, so that 0 to 20 can be used on any project with any area. No, the areas with the highest clay or not, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Yep. Understood. The 1,200 square foot, maybe I'll let Lorelei or Kelly kind of touch on this one. We did, like Ryan explained and Omar, we did a bunch of homework on kind of how to make these the most flexible and usable to all of the communities. Gas versus electric, we're still exploring that. We'll get into that in the DD phase, and different jurisdictions have different requirements. And, if you go above a certain size, you need to meet the all electric code. If you're under, you don't have to. So ideally, we're going to design 2 systems, but we need to just confirm and make sure that we have it within our budget to be able to do both a gas and electric system versus an all electric system. So ideally, we can do both for all.
Or solar panel too.
Yeah. For fire sprinklers, that one's tricky. Our current thinking is that that's just going to be a deferred approval because the head locations will change based on the flow rate and based on what pressure is available from the street. They're not going to be required for all of the ADUs won't need them, but like you're saying, SB9 homes might be, since the program is intended to be for ADUs. That was our goal on this. And our current thinking is that any fire sprinkler work would be a deferred submittal. So if people wanted fire sprinklers, they would know, they would see it in the checklist, but they would have to go out and do that on their own.
With manufactured homes, there's a fire design, that's a sprinkler design that provides a pressure at the base of the pipe. And then you, depending on what water pressure you're getting from the street, then you just have to deliver that to that point. But that from there, that's what you need to do. And the fire sprinklers then are part of the approval process. And so it could go both ways. And ADUs, like I was saying, sometimes they are needed, sometimes they aren't needed.
Right.
I'd like to just answer your question, Schmidt, on the 1,200 square foot. City of Atascadero is unique in that we do have these larger property sizes. We're the only city out of the group that actually wanted to seek larger sizes. So we actually chose not to pursue that with this particular design scenario. Remember, we're trying to encourage smaller units. The state's trying to encourage that. And as you look at a 1,200 square foot unit, it's really not an accessory dwelling unit. That's a full-size house. And didn't want to incentivize that through these stock plans. Instead, we want to incentivize that the units that are affordable by design and the units that truly can fit into backyards and fit into places and not be an obtrusive large house. And I think if someone can do a 1,200 square foot unit, they probably don't need the assistance of a streamlined stock plan. That's a larger house.
Yeah.
Back to the fee thing, everything that's 749 square feet or below is completely exempt from development impact fees if it's an accessory dwelling unit. Not if it's an SB 9 unit, not if it's a standalone unit. Now, units that are larger than the 749, that are 750 and up, are eligible for sliding scale fees for if they're ADUs. They have a sliding scale based on their size, which is proportional to a regular unit. We have not done a fee analysis on that, and that's a challenging thing to do. Other cities that have done fee analysis on these smaller units have actually come up with determinations that regardless of the size of unit, multiple people may be living in the units unless they're really small. I mean, we get 3,000 square foot houses with 2 occupants, and we get 800 square foot homes with 4 occupants. So it's really hard to do that. And that becomes instead a political decision on fees if we decide to go that way with all of our units. And with our next fee study, we will be looking at those types of topics.
Yeah, and on the 1,200 square feet, I'm just saying my experience has been that that's what everyone wants. I can guarantee that. There are very few exceptions wherein someone's going to want something smaller. And sometimes, like you said, if it's less than 750, I mean, that development impact fee is meaningful at that point. And so people will choose that so they can avoid paying the fee.
I want to jump in again too, Dennis. Thanks for your comments. And I think basically our next big meeting with the city is an internal team. We will talk about some of those items you brought up to make sure that we and get those set up for our building permits submittals. One item that you did not list out that we've discussed is septic, Tascadero being one that is on a lot of septic. And so that some of these items will be kind of a deferred or client driven unique thing where they'll have to reach out and get their own septic system design and add it to this package.
Yeah. We have every community has a lamp now, so it's pretty much handled right there.
Yeah. So there's solar, septic, fire sprinklers, foundations, there's varying things that we still have to discuss with all the cities about those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis, for the great questions, and thanks staff to the answers. I have a committee member that needs to go to another meeting after this, so I'm going to let her go next with her questions. Susan?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I appreciate everybody's indulgence in moving this discussion to start at 1 so that to accommodate my other committee obligations on public work. First of all, this really nice range of sizes and architectural styles in the package, and I'm so excited to see this moving forward. I think it will make it easier for folks to come in there and see what it would be to do an ADU, easier to understand what the cost might be, and we will get more of this affordable by design housing options happening if people can see how to do this and do it profitably on their own properties. Good, efficient use of space, nice covered porches, and I like all the windows. That's going to make these light and pleasant units. So bravo on that. And I'm also pleased to hear in your presentation today that you're going to have information package for the applicants to guide them through the process. That will help a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And just reducing the level of uncertainty about costs, about process, about which choices. I mean, if you're building your house, somebody's going to come to you and say, this afternoon, you need to choose the cabinet surfaces, and here are your choices, or, whatever, those kinds of really clear lists, and the extent to which your designs make it easy for people to see, okay, I have to choose this, 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 and this, you can just really simplify the task, and it will get people moving. That being said, several things larger and smaller. On page 8, you mentioned wet wall cores. I'm not a construction person, so perhaps you could define that.
Sure. The wet wall just means all the plumbing is on the same wall. So when you stack things like this, where you've got your washer dryer, your sink, your toilet, and your shower all in one wall, then it just means the plumber only has to go in. He's got to do one wall of connections, and he doesn't have to do a bunch of trenching or pipes overhead or underneath. So it just makes it really simple and cost effective for the plumbing trade.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
On page 29, in the 1-bedroom plan, the shape on that page shows an L shape, but the layout seems to be a rectangle with a couple of cutouts. So I was kind of confused about the extent to which this was like an L shape or whatever.
Omar, can you go to page 29 of the presentation?
Yeah, I think she's referring to the icons, like the massing icons, which are not exactly reflecting the actual floor plan.
These were maybe not updated. They were done earlier. Yeah,
they were done much earlier. They're kind of just icons representing each of the unit sizes roughly, but they're not the actual final massing forms.
Okay.
I will say that on the 1-bedroom, when we got to that, we did start to think about where the bedroom's located on the front plane of the house, so that it won't just be a solid wall, but it will come out slightly, so there's some articulation and it looks a little bit, less large.
Okay, and then one of the surprises for me, I was anticipating more variety in shape in this as opposed to in size. And as I hear, you've really worked to have a single shape that's scaled in size, and I see that. But I'm wondering how well our staff feels like that fits the variety of lots and slope issues that we may have in Atascadero, and whether or not consideration might be given to at least one unit in a more squared block type of design. Is that really, does this set of shapes really seem to cover it, or do we need more?
I mean, I can answer a little bit from the staff perspective. So I think we've worked really hard in understanding sort of Workbench and Ryan's process, in understanding sort of cost effectiveness of construction. So, as you start sort of getting wider units that are a little bit more boxy, and Jamila and Ryan, you guys can hop in if you need to, sometimes then that changes the roof and the structural requirements and shear walls and things like that. So we do want to make sure that these are incredibly cost effective for people to build. We don't want to do extravagant shapes that sort of defeat the purpose of sort of getting towards a more affordable, streamlined option. I think, as Omar mentioned, on the 2-bedroom plus, that one does maybe feel a little long, and then maybe to provide some additional flexibility, we are looking at sort of pushing that extra sort of now shown as sort of the living dining space up towards the back of the unit to sort of create a boxier, but it will actually sort of have a cutout in a sort of U shape to allow for some really private outdoor space. And I think that was the unit that we felt like was maybe getting a little bit long for application in lots of different lot sizes. And we are trying to come up with some unique sort of roof situations to allow that to still remain very cost effective in its construction.
The other thing that's not shown here that's going to be flexible and based on each site is the foundation design and how these are sited because of that. I mean, in some cases, if you're on a hillside, it may be built on a raised foundation or a flat slab, or it could be retaining wall construction. So there's different things that can happen with that. And we'll probably run into all those scenarios in Atascadero.
And the other thing too, that each of these plans allow to be rotated in any direction, mirrored as well too. We talked about the orientation towards the back of the house or towards the rear yard, depending on how you want that entry or courtyard to kind of face. And then also the relationship to the setback and the property line that we're providing with these units, a wall that is that does not have window openings in it, so it could be placed on the 4-foot setback without the fire rated wall. just those type of ideas. So although the plans may seem kind of basic in kind of shape or size, there's still a lot of flexibility for the owner how to really place this on the site.
Okay, fair enough. That that addresses my concern about that. Another thing, when I have looked at tiny homes or visited people or with really small spaces, a lot of them use a loft to accommodate for a sleeping area or to accommodate storage. And there was reference in the text to using loft space to meet storage requirements, but I'm not seeing lofts in the plans. Is that something that could be accommodated in one of these plans, depending on how the roof style, like in the Craftsman one, where you've got a bigger roof?
Yeah, so we talked about that kind of early on with the jurisdictions. And I think once we get into the structural system and once we get into the next phase, we'll kind of revisit. Lofts are allowed in everybody's code. So we need to just study it and look at the roof plans and see where it makes sense. So that'll be part of the next phase of design.
Yeah, and I think the loft space will focus on storage space. If it's like a sleeping loft, it does count towards square footage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where we came around, while we all really like the cute look of the lofts, is that really practical for, somebody with a small child or somebody aging in place to have a loft with a ladder that you have to climb up to sleep in. And so we will be focusing, I think, the loft space on more of that storage component. And also then options for taller ceilings to make the spaces feel larger as well with the truss design.
Sure. A loft also might be a home office space or a school homework study zone or play area or some of those things. It will be flexible for different types of.
It could be those would count towards square footage, but definitely could be an option that we could include.
Okay. And then we've already addressed the sort of disconnect between SB9 and this. So I'm good with that for now. I like this idea of having outdoor room as a way of extending the enjoyable area of these homes. But one of the things that I found a little bit puzzling is the concept of the outdoor space mostly being the front porch. And I wasn't sure how usable a space that actually was for people. So I was wondering if there's the access doors off to backyard space seem to mostly be coming through the laundry room, which is a little bit weird. It may be the most useful choice here, but that just seemed a little bit strange to me.
So Susan, our goal on these is that, like, depending on where they're sited on a person's site, that they could either do a big side yard or a good sized backyard for the ADU as well. On really tight lots, we've seen these built right up on the property line, on two sides and sometimes even on three sides, in which case you really do only have the front porch, and maybe you do a screening wall between the main unit and the ADU or something like that. But our goal, you can see on like the 1 bedroom and the 1 bedroom plus, we've got sliding glass doors out of the living space. So people could then activate a backyard for the ADU. You're right, like the kind of side mudroom door is what I'm calling it, does go through like the laundry corridor. But we were thinking also that in these small spaces, it's nice to not bring your bike in through your kitchen or like maybe your surfboard. So this would give people kind of a gear, a little spot for gear or wet shoes or wet raincoats or something that's sort of like out of the way. And then on the bigger, as we start to get to the bigger sizes, we've got the sliding glass doors that go out to the back area.
Okay. Another thing about the layout, most of these seem to feature a design where the front door opens pretty much with a sight line onto the kitchen sink. And that would be the part of my house that I would least like to show off to everybody who steps in the front door. And I'm just wondering if there are some ways we can have a little option on that, or design in a planter or decorative piece or something that you could put into as an option there so that people aren't looking straight into the kitchen sink?
Yeah, they're also kind of missing a drop zone. You know, a lot of these old beach bungalows and these old homes in coastal communities, you just walk right into the living space, and then it's like, well, where do the shoes go, and where do the coats go, and where does all the junk go when you walk in the front door? So I think that I appreciate that comment, and I think we'll explore that entry sequence a little bit more as we continue to develop the plans.
And one thing we could do too, working with our structural engineer, is possible alternate door locations. If it works out and it's not a shear wall, we could have almost option number 2 for the front door dashed in, and the homeowner can choose which wall or which direction they want it to go. And that way it does, again, increase and provide more options for how this could be sited and where you want that kind of entry and view to come from and go into.
That would be great. And the flexibility would be, I think, very helpful to homeowners doing this. And then on the 2-bedroom plus option, what's the purpose of that little sort of notch there right by the front door? And maybe and I know this one's not finalized yet, so maybe that's going to go away, but that just seemed like you add a little notch. It's not big enough to sit in or do anything but maybe put in a plant or two. And it adds, when you add the extra corners to a unit, my recollection is that adds cost to the unit. So I just wondered why would we want to do that?
I can speak to that. What you're seeing here is kind of an earlier version. Like, as I mentioned, we're still working with Kelly on defining this one. It'll probably turn into more of a box. We started this as the program criteria was that we wanted a true 3-bedroom with 2 baths. And so the third bedroom was kind of in the notch, and there was a window there, and the bathroom was where it's recessed. The conversation came up at our last meeting that actually, let's make this more of a 2-bedroom plus, make it a little bit more open. We're still finalizing that. So it's kind of an artifact of the process that we'll look at when we really refine this unit.
Okay. And I do think it would be nice to have that option to, as you've done with the smaller units, to have that addition, the plus space, be either a flex space or another bedroom. That gives people options over time, gives people better flexibility for how they might use that space. Okay, that.
Are you complete, Susan?
Yes, that I was just checking my list here, and then that runs my my list of feedbacks and comments now.
Thank you. And it sounds like you guys are still a work in process on some of these. So some of the fine details, I'm sure, are going to emerge on the next time this comes around to us. Go ahead and have Jeff Van Den Eyck.
Sure. First, I'd like to commend you all for the work you've been doing. This is certainly an important thing that our community will need. I kind of been thinking about the same lines as some of my other committee members, is the more flexibility you can build into these plan sets, you know, whether it's options or, you know, how the door opens or where it's located. I think those are very important things. I think actually I like the floor plans and the layouts that you have here, and I don't have any real additional comments besides that.
Thank you, Jeff. Emily.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. I feel similarly. I have a lot of the same, I've been having a lot of the same thoughts that the other committee members are having. And I have a bit of experience with ADUs and with stock plans. So I understand how challenging this project is. And I think you guys, the design team's done a really good job. They're attractive, they're interesting. I'm excited working in this jurisdiction and the others locally to have something like this going so that we can, you know, help our residents get where they want to be on their property quicker. On the flexibility topic that a lot of the other committee members are talking about, I was wondering if one option for like door placements might be to I might suggest sizing the window openings so that headers are pre-engineered for replacement with sliders or single or double French doors in multiple locations, so that that's kind of already in the bag. Also on the shower enclosure / tub topic, I might request that we have a pre-provided, reviewed and engineered recessed shower plan detail in the foundation plans so that those can be swapped out easily. On kind of a topic that hasn't gotten brought up, I was wondering what consideration has been given to energy efficiency, and if so, what steps you guys are taking to try to incorporate some passive solar fundamentals in this. I don't see a whole lot of detail yet. Obviously, it's schematic, so things like wall sizing and so potential insulation levels and things like that. I'm wondering about. And kind of those two together, flexibility and energy efficiency, I wonder if we might be able to also provide a set of pre-designed, engineered, reviewed and approved awning styles, maybe one for each architectural, that would allow for shading on uncovered exposed faces or elevations. Depending on site placement, of course, and orientation, it might help to have something in the can already that can be incorporated for each design style to provide shading as necessary on some of those larger door and window arrangements. Other than that, like I said, I think it's an exciting project, and you guys are doing a great job with them being, I think, desirable. I think people are really going to be excited for this.
Thank you, Emily. Yes, I agree with my colleagues. There's a lot of time, a lot of work went into this design and really trying to make these work with not only our community, but as a template for all the other communities. Some of us have surfboards all the way up here, some of us don't. So having that storage, is ideal. They're enormous, some of them, depends on what you ride. Anyways, having the simplicity and the ease of the process for a community that's looking to build something for their retiring in-laws, or even just their children that can't quite go out and afford a home of their own. So I think these are going to be ideal. Appreciate you taking the time. Now we're going to open it up to public comment on this topic, and anybody in the webinar that's wanting to speak, please raise your hand. *9 if you're participating as well. Let me see our list of participants or attendees. Looks like we've got no one wanting to comment yet.
I don't see anybody wanting to comment. I will remind people that we do open and then close public comment, and there's no options after that. So if you're wanting to speak, please raise your hand and we'll try and get to you in order that we see you.
Perfect.
That looks like Mrs. Tina would like to talk, so I'm gonna unmute her, and if she can unmute herself. There you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the average size lot being 50 feet in most cities means that your widths on those, at least those two larger, I'm not seeing the width on the third one, but at least the two largest ones, when you take the average lot of 50 feet, you deduct the 4 feet from each side for the setbacks. Those are unusable. It's concerning to me that you're standardizing unusable sizes for the average lot. Is there any way to modify those shapes so that they fit within the standard 50 foot? I know that Atascadero has some larger lots, but not all of them are. And it's kind of broad stroke putting a few of your plans for most people unusable. Is there a way to rectify that, to change those shapes so that they fit within the, what is 50 minus 4 minus 4, 42 feet width?
One thing
max.
I'll mention on that is I don't know if you're thinking about, these can go on a property on any orientation. So you need to look at the thinner orientation, which is 20 something feet. They can go they can go at an angle, they could go sideways, they can go horizontal. So I think, yeah, no matter what size, no matter what, if you get up to 1,000 square feet, it's not going to fit on a tiny lot, no matter which way you configure it. But I think it's a really good point, but I think it's just, I mean, how it fits on a lot is, it's not just lot size, it's just how it's configured, it's how it's set on there.
And I think we do acknowledge that, you know, in Atascadero, our smallest single family lot size right now is a ½ an acre. So we do tend to have larger properties. And we did want to make sure that we had some units that were marketable to families, because I think in Atascadero, you know, we recognize that we have that need in that situation. So, you know, definitely those smaller units will be more useful in our other cities that are participating that do have those constrained lots. And then where we do have larger lot options, you know, the 2-bedroom and the 2+ will be most useful there, and not as useful in places like Morro Bay, unfortunately.
Did you have any other questions, Tina?
No, I'm just looking at those 2 larger plans, and I'm thinking that with a slightly different configuration, you could make sure that a lot more people could utilize those plans. You know, the front door kind of needs to be towards the street, so there's an issue with turning it on the side, and also with that long linear plan, even if you turn it on the side, you're going to have depth issues where, you know, you're going to be too long at that point to fit the next house. And I don't know, it just seems like with a slightly shorter, boxier configuration, you could retain those plans. Like you said, you want them to be available to families, and families often can't afford the larger plans, the larger lots. So slightly different shape, I think, would be able to be utilized by so many more people.
Thank you very much. And we got it on record, so we'll see what comes back on the next updated and revised versions for us. So thank you for speaking. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Did any of the committee members want to give additional? Actually, let me ask staff first. The DRC discussion items, have we addressed any and all questions that you have in regards to 1 through 4?
Yes, I think we have a good summary of comments. I think you guys put a lot of thought into it. That was really great. I think they have some great direction for as they move into construction documents and fine tuning.
Okay, is there anything else that any of my committee members want to add to this? Okay, seeing no hands, then we're going to go. Oh,
Actually, you may not be able to see my hand, but this
I
is
see you
question.
now.
There was mentioning of mirroring the plan, flipping and mirroring. In the final plans, will that be, you know, available as a stock option? So I want the 2-bedroom, 895 gross square feet, and I want it flipped and mirrored, or flipped in orientation.
Yeah.
So then we're going to try to figure out how to show that as clearly as possible without creating, you know, 50 extra sheets for each plan set that show mirrored and reversed and all that. So we're going to, it will be somewhere in the documentation to show those options.
Yeah, and Susan, one way that this plan set, when they are available to the community, is that there will be a site plan that the homeowner would then have to locate the unit, and in that place they would show the orientation and the mirroring of how that will be located on site.
I think that addresses the foundation issues that Phil was speaking to earlier about each property is going to have just a little bit different setup, and having that flexibility, I think, is going to be ideal for our community, because we're just not flat, you know, cookie cutter. So appreciate your time and your openness to our ideas and suggestions. So thank you very much. I'll go ahead and move on to our next project. It looks like it's got Mariah down for the next photo.
Right, let me go ahead and,
There's Mariah. Oh, by the way, did we introduce our other planner yet to the DRC? There's another face on the screen. Oh, wait, did she go? No, there she is. There's another face on the screen. I'll just take a quick moment before Mariah introduces her report to introduce Bailey Sullivan. For those of you who haven't met her, she's our assistant planner. And we can talk more about her after the meeting if she can tolerate that, or after we get through this item. Sorry to sidetrack you, but in case you're wondering who's hanging out with us there.
We picked on her earlier.
Oh, you did? I missed that? I stepped on a couple.
It's all right.
Oh, good.
We didn't ask for her title. We just said there was a new face and hi Bailey. So
Oh, okay.
we'll have her give her introduction after we get through this presentation.
okay, great, thank you. So this is for a new multifamily residential project. It's being called Emerald Court. It's just one property away from Emerald Ridge, which is the property that you see being developed along El Camino there with those apartment buildings. The address of this project is 2505 El Camino Real. So here's an aerial photo. You can see a little bit better what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, this is an older aerial, but this area over here is the one being developed with Emerald Ridge. So this new project, Emerald Court, is in the high density multifamily zoning district. It's on a property that is 0.41 acres right now, but they're going to be doing a lot line adjustment. The same property owner owns the one right above it. So they'll be doing a lot line adjustment to change it from 0.31 to, or I'm sorry, from 0.41 to 0.31. And I'll show you that in just a moment. So here are some photos from the site. There is currently one single family residence on the site. It was recently redone to sort of bring up its appearance, and then the new development is designed to match it. But this just gives you a little bit of an idea of what the site looks like today. Here's another photo of the front of the site. You can see there's a few trees, a small wall. The applicant will be required to do frontage improvements. So that includes curb, gutter, and sidewalk along the front there. And then it runs along El Camino, and then Madera Place is a private road that you can see going up the hill there. Right now they have this small manufactured home that's just a temporary thing. I think it's just being stored there for now. So that's going to go away, but this gives you a little bit of an idea of the relationship between the property. And then there is a single family home a little ways away from it in the back there. So the project being proposed is the construction of a new 2-story, 10-unit multifamily building, again, behind an existing single family home. So it's a total of 11 units. The new building is about 12,210 square feet. There's proposed 11 on-site parking spaces with 2 right in front of the project along the street there on El Camino. The project does include one very low income affordable unit. So they do get a state density bonus, which is actually the reason they're doing the lot line adjustment, decreasing the size, that 0.1 acres, because the state density bonus, according to our municipal code, the zoning allows for a maximum of almost 7.5 units. So about 8 units, but according to the state code, if at least 12% of units are designated very low income, they can receive a 38.75% density bonus, as well as one concession. So by reducing the lot size, having one very low affordable unit, they can get this density bonus and build up to 11 units, which is the density that they're proposing. So here we can see the proposed site plan. Again, there's an existing residence. This is all one new development. It's 2 stories, 5 units on each story. You can see it comes up Madera Place, which is again is a private road with these 11 parking spaces located right along Madera. and then a trash enclosure in the back here. So the project does meet the multifamily standards of the municipal code. It has 100 cubic feet of storage in each unit. Each unit has its own laundry facilities. There's a required 3,300 square feet required of recreation space or open space, and they're providing almost 3,900. And then the maximum lot coverage is 50%, and they're covering 37.4%. The applicant is requesting one concession, and this is allowed under the density bonus. And they're requesting to reduce the rear setback from 10 feet for the building to almost 5 feet for the building. And then actually the trash enclosure, which we'll talk about, is fully within that setback. So the building, you can see from the rear property line, is about 5 feet away, but then this trash enclosure is right up along that setback. And then again, here's those parking spaces. And then there's 2 along the front, right in front of the project. So here's just an idea of the floor plan. You can see each unit does have their own private space, whether they're in the form of patios or balconies on the second story. These 1-bedroom units range from 525 square feet to 650. And then these patios on the first floor are a little bit larger. And then when we look on the second floor, they do have a little bit smaller balconies, but every unit does have its own outdoor space. So the design of the building will be complementary to the existing residence and have similar design styles, such as that white board and batten siding, wood railings along the balconies and patio areas, as well as the asphalt shingle roof. Again, those design elements will be cohesive between the 2 buildings. One thing that staff does want to talk about is the windows are proposed to be these white vinyl windows, and they're showing these grids throughout all of the windows. So staff has added a condition to require either integral grids instead of those faux grids that are sort of, they just look like they're sort of stuck on the window if they're going to have grids at all. Otherwise, to just remove the grids, and maybe that's something that the DRC can weigh in on. So here's some elevations. This, of course, is the front elevation from El Camino Real. So you can see this is the existing residence right here. They're both these white board and batten exteriors. The height of the building, it's 26 feet 9 inches from the lowest level, but the way that it's calculated in the municipal code, height is calculated from average grade. So it's 22 feet tall when it's calculated from average grade. And then you can see just a pop of color. They're proposing to paint that front door this yellow color along El Camino. Here's the view from Madera Place. So you can see, again, those balconies and patio areas. Each of these windows does have a small planter box beneath it. So that can be a space for, residents to utilize to plant, small plants for a little bit more of an outdoor feel. And then you can just see the side of the trash enclosure here, which we'll discuss in a little bit. This is the view from the opposite side. This is from the south side. This is facing the adjacent property, which I believe has just one single family residence on it right now. So you can see it looks similar to the other side, but doesn't have that courtyard area. And here are just some additional elevations. You can see a little bit of a better view of the trash enclosure. It's going to be screened from the parking area, so it will be fully screened from all sides. here are just some other elevations. And the applicant is proposing fencing along these side property lines. There are some retaining walls since it does go upslope. So staff has added a condition that the height of the retaining wall plus any fencing that goes on top is a maximum of 8 feet tall combined. And that's something that comes straight from our municipal code. Oops. This should say 8 feet, but that comes straight from our municipal code. And that was just a part of our most recent code update to limit the height of those two combined to 8 feet. The plans also show this fence going in the middle here. I'm not sure if that is intended to actually be there, but staff is recommending that this be removed because it kind of creates some odd spaces for both of these areas. Moving on to landscaping, so the municipal code requires a minimum landscaped area for multifamily zones of at least 25%. The applicant hasn't provided exactly what the percentage of landscaping will be, so that's another condition, is that they provide a full landscape plan showing that they meet that 25% minimum with their construction submittal. 3 non-native trees are proposed for removal primarily within the parking area, and then 5 non-native trees are to be protected and remain on the site. The conditions that have been proposed from the applicant, some of them don't necessarily thrive as much in Atascadero as they do in other parts of the community or in the county. So staff has added just another condition that they work with staff during the building permit process to make sure that these are compatible with Atascadero's environment so they'll survive and thrive. Another recommendation is that these outdoor spaces, to provide a little bit more of a landscape buffer between these two properties, that these have some element of being able to have a little bit of irrigation so that there can be large potted plants placed on each of these patio areas. And that would be required prior to final building permit. They should have some large potted or small trees in large pots, and a way that they can make sure that those get watered and maintained to, again, provide a little bit of a landscape buffer, because that is something required by our code, and they're meeting it along the front here. So moving on, we are looking for a little bit of feedback again about the trash enclosure from the design review committee. The trash receptacles will be completely hidden actually from all sides since they are in an enclosure. But the trash enclosure is proposed to be fully within that rear setback again. The design, it's a white enclosure that's going to be covered in greenery with a standing seam metal roof. But oops, I didn't have a note. But staff is just looking for input from the design review committee if that should stay directly on that property line, or if there should be a condition to maybe move that forward and add some landscaping that could potentially reduce, some noise or smell impacts. But it is worth it to note, it's not much of a visual impact from the neighboring property. The house is located about here, and again, there will be a retaining wall with a fence on it. So the enclosure itself will be hardly visible, but staff would just like input on if that should maybe be moved forward a little bit to reduce some of the negative impacts that come from a trash enclosure. So we have 4 main DRC discussion items. Of course, the overall architecture and design, the fencing, if there's a specific type of fencing, or also removing that internal fence, landscaping, if there's any specific requirements, as well as requiring large planters in those private areas, And then finally, that trash enclosure and if it should be moved off the property line or screened a little bit more. So staff has added these conditions. This is actually just going to design review committee. So these are conditions and recommendations just of the DRC. So it's not moving along to planning commission. These are just the suggested changes that we want to see moving forward to the building permit phase. And these are the ones that I'd mentioned throughout, but if there's any questions, we can certainly talk about these and we'll go over those talking points.
Thank you, Mariah. At this point, I'm going to open it up to DRC questions to staff. We'll start with Emily.
I have no questions at the moment.
Okay. Susan has left our meeting. Jeff Vanden Eyck.
Mariah, when you talk about the windows, the vinyl windows, and you're talking about non-post pasted battens, or so when you say integral, are you suggesting that they be individual panes, or that the battens be in between the panes?
So maybe Kelly can help me describe this, but essentially the idea is that it doesn't look like when it's sort of just, it's clearly a fake grid. Kelly, do you have better words to describe this?
Yeah, what we've seen for the integral grids, and it probably depends a little bit on the manufacturer, is it does sort of go all the way through the window with sort of like it's not like a real wood or vinyl dough, it's like a little metal divider. And so I believe that they are somewhat individual panes, but it's kind of an integrated system that's a little bit different than sort of the old historic wood that would go through, and then the wood would get loose and the panes would have to be replaced. It's sort of a very sort of tight integrated window system, but it's a little bit more than just a plant-on vinyl trim.
What's in the existing structure? Is that an existing colony home, or what is that?
So that is, I believe when I looked it up, it was built in the 1950s. So it's not actually a designated colony home. It does kind of have some colony style features. It was recently just completely made over. I believe the windows in it right now are those plant-on grids. So whether those could stay in maybe the new building, should be integral, or they should be removed, that could be something that the DRC would weigh in on.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Dennis Schmidt.
Yeah, am I on?
Yep.
You know, as far as the grids on the windows, to me, it's somewhat superficial. I mean, it's kind of like, what can you see from the street? And especially as you're driving by, probably nothing at all. I would say that if anything, I would say just without any grid, because it's much easier to clean. Is the trash enclosure an accessory structure by definition?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Is the trash enclosure accessory by definition?
Yes, it would be considered an accessory structure.
Oh, if it's less than 120 square feet, less than 12 feet in height, it could be within 3 feet of the property line traditionally.
Yes, well, that's actually been changed to 5 feet in our code update last.
Okay. What is the zoning of the property behind this proposal?
So these are all multi-family properties surrounding. Oops, I guess I don't have the zoning, but these are all multi-family zoned properties. I believe all of Madera Places.
All right, so I'm looking into the future, and we have a 4'10" 10-inch setback along the back of the property. The property behind could ask for the same setback or a smaller setback if they wanted to, probably. If they apply the same exclusions that this project does. So I'm wondering, and it was interesting, there was no real elevation or anything along that backside to show how much of that building is going to be exposed to the parcel behind. And then what happens in the future if the parcel behind says, okay, I want a 4-foot 10-inch setback also? Is there anything that would prevent that? It'd be maybe because a neighbor saying, or the neighbor that's would be living in one of these units right now saying, I don't want it to be that close. So I'm a little concerned about that. And then is there a particular type of fire rating that allows for the building to be 4 feet 10 inches versus 5 feet? Is it still a 1-hour wall, or does it have to be something different to be that close? And so those are my questions. As far as the trash enclosure goes, like I said, I somewhat indifferent to that. Also, there was a question earlier about parking. A comment made about parking prior to our starting our meetings. Is there anything about the parking layout that's being proposed that's being dictated by our zoning code? I mean, in terms of tree shading or the number of spaces that are, 6 spaces, then we have to have a break, or is there anything like that that is dictating why the parking is what it is?
Mm-hmm. So we do have some parking standards. Technically, every, I believe, 6 spaces, there is required to be a planter, a landscape planter. So they are a little bit below that, I'm assuming, just, for their own aesthetics. The lot, there are some trees that are being maintained here or retained. So that, I think, would be the only possibility of adding additional spaces. Or sometimes when we get, sort of funky with it, people end up doing tandem spaces, but sometimes those don't necessarily always work out the best. So I think the only option would be to remove existing trees, and they are non-native, but that would probably be the most feasible way to add more parking.
Is Madeira Place on one side of the lot, or is there going to be if the parcel to the north develops, and we're talking about a lot line adjustment occurring in the owner owning both pieces, is there anything that says Madeira Place is going to change from what it is today when a project to the north side gets developed?
No, not that I'm aware of. I don't think the width would change.
Yeah, I don't think there would be a requirement to change width, but what we would be looking for if a project came into the north, because it is a much larger parcel that goes the entire length of Madeira Place at that point, is we would be looking for sort of a complete street design to a certain degree, with some pedestrian facilities that go all the way up, and potentially some on-street parking. So it would, there's nothing that necessarily requires that, but as we look at feasibility and parking and design of that whole neighborhood, we will be working with any future applicant to move towards that direction.
Okay.
Pretty safe to say that this part of the city is changing dramatically. There's a lot planned in this area, and because of this zoning, it's not likely to stay single family. The pressure to develop these properties, all as multifamily around this particular area, are going to continue to build. So it's all going to move forward.
And that actually kind of compounds maybe the parking scenario. We've talked, we seem to have this discussion a lot in a lot of these projects that are dealing with multi-use. And although these are 1-bedroom units, there are going to be most likely 2 cars for every 1-bedroom unit because there's 2 people sleeping in the bedroom and they each have their car to go to work. And so I would say that the 11 spots would be totally underutilized. Not enough area to be used. And that's why I was asking about what was occurring on the other side, because eventually I would say people are going to be parking across the other side because there's not going to be enough room for the cars that are going to occupy this project. Parking is very difficult, especially with multi-family residential units. The more that there is in its area, there's going to be more demand for on-street parking. And we're limited on El Camino Real. And so everyone along these private roads are going to be trying to park along that. And I just very concerned that there's not enough parking on this property.
Yeah, and we definitely run into that challenge from a staff perspective as well with the state density bonus law, which does dictate lesser standards for parking, and we cannot enforce standards above that at this time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Dennis. Okay, at this time, I'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anybody that is part of the webinar that's wanting to speak, please raise your hand. I think we had a participant earlier that wanted to speak.
Can we, I think the applicant actually had a presentation.
Okay.
Is that a?
Oh, and Jeff's got his hand raised too. So sorry.
Yep.
Listen to me go out of order. So we'll do Jeff and then we'll open it up to the applicant. How's that?
Okay, thank you. Mariah, a couple other questions came to mind when you were discussing these. One is Madera is a private road. So does the property line, it shows it as being right now going across Madera Place, but they're adjusting it to be on the other side, or?
That's the idea. I'm not sure. It's really just for the density bonus. And after looking at it again, they might not even have to adjust it because the density is based on the net acreage. That's something that just sort of occurred to us. So it might not even require a lot line adjustment. This would just have an easement. This just has a private access easement over it. So, so the lot line adjustment is probably not even.
So there's a private access easement for the rear parcels. So I assume that each parcel is responsible for the maintenance of the roadway on their parcel?
I believe that's how it works. Phil, do you know about Madera Place specifically? I know this is kind of a weird one.
It is an odd one. It's a private street. It's an access easement, really is what it is, over properties. And so it's an interesting situation. I'm not sure of all of the standards.
Okay. So, and they're showing an accessible route going to the north. Is that north property? Did you say that was under the same ownership?
Yes, correct. It's under the same ownership. Per the building code, they do need an accessible route from the right of way. And so that is what they're going to be utilizing, and then creating a path, an accessible path to these units.
Okay, so I assume that they're going to have ADA ramps on either side of Madera Place. Okay. Okay.
Can I
Thank you, Jeff. I got one question, Dennis. Sorry.
Yeah, Jeff's talking interesting point, and this is because it's a private road, it's being basically controlled by the fire department. And at this width of 24 feet, let's say that would be the driving width. I guess that's the travel way. There is not going to be parking allowed on the street on either side at some point because of the fire department. So it seems to me, again, if the property owner owns both pieces with the idea of moving the curb on the north side away, so at least there could be on-street parking on the other side, would be, I think, beneficial to to the project and to the people who live there, and then also to the owner, because he won't be limited to making it difficult for renters to live there. It just again, I would say that the fire department probably is going to say we need to have 30 feet of width or 32 feet of width from curb to curb, or for the travel way to be able to have a parallel parking on the other side or on this side too.
Thank you, Dennis. I have one more, or I have a question. Where's the speed bump requirements coming from? Is that something that's supposed to be added if they do the lot line adjustment, or is that something that's already there?
I don't know where the requirement came from. Maybe the applicant can weigh in on that. It might be a public works requirement. I'm not familiar.
Okay. Jeff, did you have anything else to ask?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and let the applicant present.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Tom Jess with Eris Studio Architects. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Well, first off, thanks for having us and being able to present this project. Is something we've been working on for quite a bit. And I do have to give compliments to Mariah and all the staff. We've gone through this a number of times, researched a ton of iterations to try and make this the best project we can. And I feel confident that that's where we're at. I feel like this is a really good project, and it's gotten better as part of the process. So Mariah, is it okay if I just share my screen at this point? Perfect. Okay, so a couple quick things, and I'll try to answer some of the questions that came up during this presentation, but I don't want to reiterate a lot of what Mariah said. So I'll try to keep it brief and just kind of touch on some of the overall concepts. So the design ethos, or the design look and feel, was, as she mentioned, driven in large part by the existing house that's there. It's a fairly attractive, pretty straightforward house, and we really want to try and create that kind of like villagey feel as the site does get more dense than what it is now, which is just a single family house on a large lot. But the board and batten siding, the windows, the composition shingle roofing kind of dictated the design ethos for the project. And on the site plan itself, we are putting the single family house remains front and center facing the street, and then the two-story structure with the new apartments is located back behind that. And we came up with kind of a courtyard scheme with the parking lining Madeira court, and then the courtyard scheme with the stair coming up to access the units on the second floor. As she pointed out, every unit does have an outdoor space, a private outdoor space available to themselves. And we feel that it works out really well in this regard. The speed bumps, there are no requirement for it. It's just that the owner of the property felt that it would be a nice amenity to kind of just make sure that everything stays residential and slows it down a little bit. We just don't want cars going back and forth. We don't necessarily feel like it's a speed road, but we did want to kind of keep it more residential and then just kind of slow traffic in general. And then the setback reduction in the back, it says 4'10", but really it's 5 feet. I think that there was just a little bit of a drafting error there that where we made the walls a little bit thicker and it reduced it, but it's technically 5 feet is where we're at. That's what we've requested on the cover sheet. That's what the request really is. The exception to that is the trash enclosure. And the reason that we did that, the house behind is a little bit more than 30 feet away from the property line setback. So it's not right up against it. And we do have a retaining wall on this property, on the property line. So it made sense for us to just back the trash up to that. It's about a 3-foot high retaining wall. And that puts the trash, it kind of buries it a little bit underneath that. And then it also gets it out of the view window of this bedroom window here. So we just tried to push it back a little bit for a couple of reasons. One was to kind of conceal it into the retaining wall, and the other one was to give a better view out of this bedroom here. One thing I will note is that as a courtesy to the neighbors, what we did is you can see along this wall here, we didn't put any windows on this back wall here. just to preserve any privacy concerns or anything along those lines, we didn't put any windows across the back there and kept that wide open there. Then let me go to the second floor. You can see the second floor, everything kind of stacks right up above the first floor, pretty efficient. Easy layouts, got the 2 stairs for egress. And then this is kind of the look and feel of the building. You can see that we've added a lot of detail on this, that, you know, we have a belly band, we got planter boxes, trimmed out windows, decorative elements up in the gables, kind of a decorative wood railing at the balconies, the comp shingle roofing, as I mentioned, and the board and batten siding, which are influenced by the house in the front. So we tried to kind of pick up that character and maybe even enhance a little bit beyond what the front house has, which is a little bit plainer and we're a little bit more decorative. But 2-story house, we're well below the maximum height limit, keeping things within a reasonable proportion. And it is truly a 4-sided architecture where we have the other side here, the same kind of gable end treatments, same window boxes, same belly band, kind of carrying that architecture around. Let me just answer a couple quick questions that did come up. One is about the property line adjustment and the reason for that. One was, well, what we did is we were trying to figure out how the number of units would work and whether or not it made more sense to put Madera Place in the north property or in the south property. And we were already going to have to access across to get this access easement across here for the accessible route. So it just made more sense to reduce the size of this property and enlarge the size of the other. And the only difference it made, it didn't affect the number of units that were allowed. What it did is it actually pushed us to provide a very low affordable unit instead of just a low affordable unit. So the proposed project, if we included this, if we did not do the lot line adjustment, we would just have one low income unit. But with the lot line adjustment, we actually are able to provide a very low income unit, which is a benefit to the community, a benefit to those that can least afford housing. So we felt like that was a benefit there. And then on the north property, further down the road, when we get to that point, things may change up there. I'm not sure exactly what's going to be proposed up there. We haven't done any scenarios for that yet. And then the other thing is you can see across the front here, we are doing the street front improvements here. We're currently the dirt just kind of rolls right up to the edge of the asphalt. We're going to be doing full improvements across here, putting in the sidewalk and dressing this whole area up there. And we are doing a couple little finger planters in here to help with the shading in the parking lot. We really want this to look and feel like a really upscale, nice community, and we feel like enhancing the landscaping and making the landscaping look really nice is a big aspect of that. So the condition that has to do with putting irrigation or hose bibs in the back for additional landscaping, we're all in favor of that. No hesitation, no reservation on our side with that condition. And then I don't know if there was any other questions that came up. If they were and I missed them, I apologize, but we're certainly able and willing to answer any questions you may have. And once again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your presentation. Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anybody in the webinar is wanting to speak, *9 and raise your hand.
It looks like we have one hand raised. I'm gonna allow John in.
Thank you.
John, I think you're able to talk now, if you're unmuted.
Perhaps he stepped away.
If there's anybody else that would like to speak, I'll mute John and then we'll come back to him in a minute.
We had our caller.
Yes,
earlier.
our caller. Ending in 8625. If you would like to unmute, you can now speak.
I believe it's *6 to unmute.
Hi, thank you. I'm the one who mentioned earlier about the parking situation. And I just want to reiterate, I think everything on the plans sounds really nice. I can't see it right now because I wasn't able to get on Zoom, but like the look of the first resident at the street, like that looks nice and everything, but like actually living on the street, the parking situation as it has been without having these extra units is already difficult. We're not able to have guests over. There's no guest parking. You can't park along the street, as someone else mentioned, because the street's too small, narrow. And then I just wanted to mention as well with the new project, the larger project on the other side, there's going to be a lot more people living there, which is, you know, fine, but I'm concerned about El Camino and was just wondering if there's going to be like a middle access road or something, I don't know what you call it, where you can actually make turns so that you don't block traffic on El Camino, or some, I don't know, something to make it easier. Is there going to be any stoplights or anything like that to make it easier to actually get out of the road? Because it can get pretty trafficy there. And then with all these extra units, I think that's going to be a problem.
Okay, thank you, Colin. We'll address all the questions here shortly once we hear from the other caller or participant. Looks like John doesn't want to speak now. If you want to speak, please raise your hand. All right, Mariah, it looks like we got another caller with their hand up.
So caller ending in 1433, you've been allowed to talk, so you just need to unmute on your end, which I believe is *6 if you're on the phone.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah, and I actually was on the computer with John and I couldn't get the speaker to work, so I apologize. I too have some concern with the parking, the turn lane, the fence on Madera Place. Sorry, I was just running. The fence that they already put up on the northeast side, the back side, I guess, of the property, it already interferes with driving up and down Madera Place. They made the fence all the way to the road. And then the parking. The parking's a huge issue. I don't agree with the 2 spots on El Camino for that house. I think that should be a turning lane into Madera Place. It just kind of makes more sense. As the previous caller said, it's hard to see there. And with the Emerald Ridge apartments just down the way, they put landscaping. It looks great, but it made it harder to see pulling out of Madera Place. Plus, we're going to have the increased traffic due to that Emerald Ridge. So traffic and parking is a huge concern for me. I've lived on Madera Place for 9 years. The lot right next to it is a daycare. So having that trash can right up next to the daycare, I know you guys said it's like, oh, it's 30 feet away, but they're a full daycare. They have people coming and going every day. As it is, when the trash man pulls up on our street, you have to stop at the bottom of the hill and wait for him to finish unloading all the trash and then back down the hill. Like, there's no turning around. The street's not wide enough. Let me look at my notes. Sorry. I had to go and run and get my daughter from school. This meeting was a long meeting. I guess I want to know, is this already approved as it is with our city? It seems like a lot being put into a little spot. A lot of new residents.
Sorry about that. I muted myself. Thank you.
It's okay. I wasn't sure if I was still there.
Yeah, technology. Did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I want to know if this is already approved. Like, is this project approved or are they in the design phases? Like, can the people on Madera Place say, we don't want you guys to build these many houses, these many apartments? You know, like, that's, I guess, why I'm on this call today.
Okay, I'll have city staff address that. So give me just a moment and we'll answer your questions about the project and then also the parking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, do you want to take that, Mariah or Kelly?
I think I want to answer the question about, is this approved or is it not approved? That's actually a really good question, because more and more of these multifamily projects are becoming what we call by right. They don't require discretionary review, and that's consistent with state law. Our city code does require a conditional use permit when you exceed a certain number of units. I believe that's 12 units. But generally, what's happening is all these projects are becoming non-discretionary. We can put in place design standards. And in fact, what we're doing is going to be adopting a set of objective design standards for such projects. But it's essentially becoming not really possible for the city to deny multifamily projects, and especially affordable multifamily projects. And the density bonuses that they receive for these projects are essentially automatic if they meet very minimal 10% affordability requirements. So in a multifamily zone, a high density multifamily zone, which this is, it is reserved for this type of housing. And some of the housing is going to end up getting density bonuses. And a lot of the housing is going to be simply, we can comment on design elements and some of those standards, but not on whether the project can happen or not. If that makes sense.
So, yeah, can you hear me still? I didn't know if I was muted.
Yes, I can totally hear you. Thank you.
So with them decreasing the lot size, is that what gave them this density bonus thing? Because that sounds a little fishy to me. Like, they decrease the lot to get this extra bonus to put more housing here. I don't understand that fully.
No, it's not the lot size issue. It's the affordability. When they say that they're going to put in one of the units as affordable or two of the units that are affordable, the state automatically requires that we give them what they call concessions, which means that they get flexibility on the setback, they get flexibility on other property development standards, but they're doing the lot adjustment for other reasons. That's not really associated with whether they get this project or how that all works out. And I think our planner Mariah can talk about that feature, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say that lot adjustment is because they bought the property on the north side of Madera Place also, correct? Like, that's why they were able to do that?
And you're trying to balance out the two projects and all the improvements and the access that's required to make the project better and to make it function better, certainly.
Okay. Because my concern is they're gonna develop the lot to the north side of Madera Place and jam just as many so-called affordable housing that's not super affordable. And once again, the parking and the street, and it's just crazy.
I totally understand. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, I know the area was designated for multifamily apartments back prior to 2002. And here we are in 2022, and it still hasn't developed as such. So I think what we're going to see as the state continues to pressure communities to build more housing like this, to have more housing, you're going to see this area develop, and there's not a lot of control we have over that at this point, with it already being designated for that. So what we can do is make sure the projects that do go in are the best they can possibly be, that they're designed with good aesthetics, that they function properly, that they're not unsafe for people to get in and out of. But the area has already been designed for apartments for a long time.
Okay. So one last thing, I guess. I'm not on my computer, so I have a picture of the design, and in the front on El Camino, they're going to put the sidewalk and the 2 parking spaces. The sidewalk they have to put in, is that correct? Because they're updating the property, they have to put the sidewalk there?
Yes, it triggers what we call frontage improvements, which means the curb, the gutter, the sidewalk. just like what
Okay.
Emerald Ridge put in, so they have to follow that pattern, like the
Gotcha.
apartment building next door.
Yeah, but what about the turn lane though? So they made it so they can have 2 parking spots there, and it looks like maybe another tree in the way of view. Who's to say, oh, or the city, can the city say, oh, we want that to be a turn lane instead of these 2 parking spaces? Because that's not on their property, is that correct?
There's a certain amount of traffic volume that would trigger the need for a turn lane. In our Public Works Division and our traffic standards would really demonstrate that need. In this particular case, it has not been demonstrated that there's enough traffic, there's enough units, even at full build out, of all the apartments that are going to be allowed here in the future to need a turn lane on this particular property. So for something
Really,
like
even
an
with the
entrance,
Emerald Ridge coming in?
Emerald
Even
Ridge
with
is
the
being-
Emerald Ridge that
Emerald
they're
Ridge is a
doing, that
separate-
won't increase?
They have a separate access point for Emerald Ridge and a separate driveway. What's going to happen in the future?
No, I
is
know.
There's going to be a road that connects through the back of these properties back out towards the other side. So there's going to be a loop road that comes in and comes around the back of all these properties and comes out at the Emerald Ridge Apartments. So there'll be a whole different road system around.
Yeah,
there.
way back around, yeah.
Yeah,
correct.
way back around. But I don't think.
So you know what I mean?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if we have anybody from
I-
our Public Works Division here today. Do we, Mariah, to talk about turn lanes? And
We don't, but I can certainly try to get a hold of someone if
I'd
you
like to,
want to.
it'd be great if you could get a hold of Nick just to chime in. Oh gosh, I think he might be in our other meeting that started at 3, but if we can get him to chime into that.
I think what we
That's
can
okay,
do.
it's just a concern.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think what we can do is we will relay that concern, and we will, it is the city's right of way. And so we do control improvements there. And so we will make sure with him that our team on that side understands sort of the full development potential, and will confirm what full build out of the right of way then looks like, and make sure that there's no safety concerns.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, because it's just 2 lanes up here. There's not a center lane for turning. And I'm
So
just concerned, it's already
yeah.
hard.
a good
Getting
comment.
out onto
That's
El
good.
Camino is hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
so-
really good comment.
Part of the frontage improvements will likely include some road widening. It will be the same sort of width as the improvements in front of Emerald Ridge, and El Camino on the entire strip is slated to have that center refuge turn lane. It's a little
They
bit
are
hard.
going to change that.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard when we
Okay.
have narrow parcels because it, becomes a little bit, hopscotched over other properties that haven't developed yet. So we do want to make sure it's safe, but their frontage improvements may include some road widening as well to allow for that center turn lane alignment.
Thank you, Kelly and
Okay.
Phil. Caller, what we
Thank
can do
you.
is we'll put a notation in our remarks and comments that we'd like to have some additional research or that addressed in this project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Have a good day. Okay. Thank you. All right, let me go back to my list of participants. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak during public comment since it's still open? Okay, so at this time, we're going to close public comment. Mariah, we're going to go back to your DRC discussion items and see if we addressed every item you had down there.
Okay, Tom, I'm gonna go ahead and stop, or I think you have to stop. Okay, we're gonna share my screen again.
So I have down family, multifamily standards, and then 2 landscaping requirements and standards.
What just happened? Yeah, I made it a little bit clearer in the presentation, so it's probably easier to go off of these, but yeah, the first one is just the general architecture and design of the new building and of the entire development.
I'll look to my colleagues and see who wants to comment about the design. Hold on 1 second, I gotta put back up my grid pattern to see you all. Hollywood squares here. All right, Emily.
Architecture and design, I have no comments. I like a lot. I agree that the improvements that were made to that existing residence are attractive. I noticed it previously, and I think if they keep with that style. It'll look really nice with everything else that we've got going on down on that end of town. As far as the window grids are concerned, I know that the combination internal dividers and external architectural feature for those, the grids I think that you're talking about do add a lot of cost. And so in lieu of a cheaper option, I'd rather see no grids on the new building. Other than that, I have no comments.
Mariah, I'm just going to have her go ahead and answer and give us feedback on the following 3 other items. Thoughts on the fencing?
I agree about the internal fence. I don't understand what the intent of that was. Perhaps it has something to do with, you know, density or lot coverage. I'm not sure. I'd like to see that removed just so that existing residents can have a more useful yard, perhaps. Landscaping, the large planters, in order to hit that 25%, I'm assuming, because of the concern for traffic and parking, I would be inclined to allow a reduction to that requirement to increase the overall space allowed and available for parking. I think the planters are a nice idea. They look really nice, but if they're adding to the conflict for parking, I'd prioritize parking if possible. I don't have as much concern with the trash enclosure. I think that location makes good sense. I would only question whether the waste authority has had input on its functionality, and then whether, that'd be my only question. I think the location's appropriate as long as the waste authority agrees with how they're going to have to get in and out of it.
Thank you, Emily.
Just to back up really quick to clarify the landscaping. So the large landscape planters, those are more intended to be required on the private spaces. So those wouldn't affect planters as in like pots is probably what I should have said. So potted plants to add more. Normally we don't require individuals to have potted plants in their private spaces, but since there's no landscape buffer, that's what that's referring to. But just to go off of another point you made, they are preserving a couple of trees here. Like I said, they're non-native, but is that something the DRC would want to consider if they, however they can meet the parking requirement, or if there should be a reduction, but should they maybe consider removing one of these or replacing it with a smaller planter or something for more parking?
I don't know what species those are. You say non-native. You know, I know we and I personally try to preserve oaks as much as possible, but if they are non-native, and I think that accessibility and safety is a concern for parking, creates safety and accessibility concerns, I would prioritize the parking over non-native trees. And I think those existing in conjunction with the shrubs, I think that I was reading those as being in planters as well in the parking lot. But if that could be reduced or simplified and we could find additional space beyond that, I think it would be an improvement and perhaps allay some concerns for the neighborhood residents that are already experiencing, you know, congestion.
Okay. Thank you. That clarifies it. Oops.
Thank you, Emily. Dennis?
I was wondering, on the previous photograph, what is that dash line that's running around the site? There's a gray dash line that maybe you see the stop sign or the stop bar on the pavement, and you then go to the east from that. There's a gray dash line. Yeah, that. What is that?
You know, I'm not sure what that's pointing to actually. Maybe, I think Tom is still on. Maybe he can clarify, or if that was just left over from something.
Yeah, this is Tom. That gray line is just the setback line. If the property line was up there, but it's really irrelevant at this point because it's in a
Well,
an
the
access
parking
easement.
the parking seems to be lining up with it up front. Again, there's whether that's a non-native tree between the parking spot and the El Camino Real, I don't know. But it seems like you're lining up the setback on that with that one parking spot. So I agree very much with Emily about the situation with the parking, and I would support trying to provide as much parking as we can along this area. I think the architecture of the project is extremely nice, and I have no issue with that. Parking, I do have a problem with. I also, with respect to the trash enclosure, I mean, the way it's situated now, I guess the waste hauler is going to have to come out and drag out the cans and pull them out so they can be picked up and dumped into the truck and then pushed back in. And so I whether they want to do that or not, I don't know. They seem to, at least where I live, they want to have the trash cans located in such a way they can just drive, pick them up and go. But those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Dennis. Jeff?
I agree with the comments of the other committee members regarding the trash enclosures. Most likely because of the number of units, these are going to be roll-off bins. So, and yeah, those guys, the waste haulers, they know how to move those pretty easily. They don't have to pull in straight to those. So I don't think that's an issue. Definitely think that internal fencing needs to be removed. And I think as far as the architecture, I agree. I really like it. And if you know, I'd rather see plain windows than than adding additional costs for those more expensive windows, unless of course the owner wants to do that. So overall, I think it's a great project, and I understand this will come before the planning commission as well, right?
No, this actually will not come before planning commission because it's below the 12 unit threshold for a conditional use permit.
Okay.
This will be the only.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Yes, I agree. It's a challenge when you're trying to build these smaller multi-units and dealing with parking. Parking obviously is going to be our number one issue, safety. So I'm fine with staff working with the applicant to adjust the trees, the additional shrubbery. Shrubbery on the private residence, I don't think that needs to be mandatory. I think that needs to be left up to discretion of each one of their tenants. I think at this point, we just want to make sure on this project that there is compatibility with the neighbors, that there's some working with them to be able to see in and around this project. I have no issues with the trash bin. I think that can be worked out internally with the staff and applicant. And then the fence, I do agree, it does need to be removed. I'm not sure what it was put in there for as well. But I think we're all pretty much in agreement that this is a good project. It's hard when our community develops in these multifamily zoned areas, because as Phil mentioned, for 19 years, these lots have stayed vacant, and now they have the right to develop them. And it comes before us to make sure that we do give it the best project that we can by making recommendations about how they work within the parameters of what this property was owned. So staff has done really well with it. Applicants worked with their designer, and hopefully they'll take into consideration all of the public's input and recommendations on these properties. And at this point, I'd say that we appreciate your time, both the public and the applicants, for coming before us. Mariah, I think we have addressed all of your questions and given you the feedback you need. Is there anything else you need from the committee on this project?
Nope, I'm pretty clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on to the next point. It's going to be our committee member comments and reports.
Bailey.
Yes, Bailey's topic. It's written right in there.
Oh, man. So she's gonna give a speech right now, I think.
Exactly. We've been talking for how many hours, Bailey? It's up to you.
Hi, guys. I'm the new assistant planner here, so honestly feels like a great family and everyone's made me feel very welcome. So I'm happy to be a part of the team.
How did you find us?
It was actually super funny. It was through Interwest Consulting Group and somehow stumbled into City Hall and met with Phil and ended up getting offered a job. So happy it worked out.
Yeah, what actually happened is we were looking for an assistant planner. We had posted the job. And at the same time, Interwest Consulting Group had offered us a consulting planner, which was Bailey, that was, basically they had found. But through all the laws that we have with PERS now, we're not able to hire a full-time outside consultant to work as part of our team. So we couldn't accept Interwest's offer. So we still just went out for a planner, and Bailey ended up applying through that process and was successful as a candidate after we interviewed several others. So
we
worked out
stole
that way.
her.
We first met her through we stole her away from Interwest. So but it's worked out great. She's only been working for us for a week or two now, 2 weeks, maybe 3, maybe. I don't know.
It's actually the third week though.
Are you from Cal Poly or?
Yeah, I graduated this past June, but I'm originally from Redondo Beach.
Okay.
Yeah, and I ended up just staying here, fell in love with SLO County.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
I look forward to working with you in the new year. With that, Phil, I think you gave us all our latest calendars for the 2020 year. I'm not ready to digest the fact it's 2022 already, but it's only a couple weeks away, but I'll complain to you in January. Don't worry.
It is so fast. As planners, we always plan ahead, and the whole year is planned out. So sorry.
No, I love it. Double thumbs up on.
I'm gonna try to put those on my calendar, but I don't know if I can, I'll wait till the new year. Any other committee member comments or reports? Okay, I guess everybody's gonna have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Soon as Phil gets done giving us his director's report.
All right, I don't have anything earth-shattering to share with you this week, but I am here to answer your questions. All of our nice development projects are moving forward, like La Plaza. The first building on La Plaza is about to get finals this week, completed, which is nice. So they'll grant their occupancy to the smaller building. There's still tenant improvements to be finished downstairs for the yogurt shop and another restaurant space. Those will continue to move on, but the occupancy means that they can begin to rent out or sell the residential spaces upstairs, and we can see the fencing come down and some other things happen over there. And then shortly following, the larger building will be completed as well. And just to remind you, we're still working with properties up by Del Rio on the Big Barrel Creek project, on the Del Rio Ranch project. And the latest addition to those is Quinn Pierce's shopping center, which is going to be anchored by a Valley Fresh supermarket and some other stores and perhaps some professional office uses as well. So we'll very likely be seeing some designs from that in the new year, along with Barrel Creek and along with Del Rio Ranch again, as we get into the finer design details of those particular things. But yeah, everything else is moving ahead. You probably saw the construction of the 2-story building in the south end of town, which is nearing completion as well. It's just north of the Nest restaurant there. And trying to think of what else is happening in the development world. That's probably the big things. A lot of single family house development still happening around town. And we're going to be moving forward with something I had mentioned earlier, which is objective design standards. That will be a big part of our lives, which means that we'll have a set of pre-prescribed standards for doing residential development. As the state continues to say, here's what you have to build, you can't say yes or no, you just need to take it. We need to come in with parameters and design standards. So that's going to be the big push for 2022, along with our general plan update, which is going to be the big activity we're all going to work on as well. But we still have these grant activities. Objective design standards is one of those. And we still have to come back with long-term accessory dwelling unit standards and our long-term SB9 standards that we just went to council for. Oh, and I should remind the rest of the DRC that we did just adopt an urgency ordinance this Tuesday night at the city council that addresses Senate Bill 9 and provides for some preliminary objective design standards for the development of those units. And we'll have some handouts on that shortly, but just so you all know what got approved in terms of that urgency ordinance is that under SB 9, which takes effect January 1, people who have single family residential lots who are within an urbanized zone that are served by sewer will be eligible to look at SB 9 to either subdivide their property or to build additional units on their property. And we'll have all the parameters out on that very shortly in time for the January 1 release of Senate Bill 9. So that's all I'm going to tell you today.
Did we hire a consultant for the general plan?
Yes, we did. MIG is the chosen consultant. They had helped us out previously with our housing element. They know our community. It's a great consultant team. We did a tour of the city with them recently to kind of give them a grand tour of all the sights, sounds, and smells of Atascadero. And they will be coming to join us at a strategic planning session along with the city council in late January. And that's where we'll do an initial scoping of what's going to be in that general plan update. But they have to get their feet on the ground first, get to know our community a little bit, and then they'll know enough to talk about scoping, and the council and the planning commission can guide them on the scope. And I think the commission will be invited to that as well, and the community. And so we'll talk about it with that team, and they can go through, what they see in our community. We can guide them to what we want on the real basic kind of high level ingredients of the general plan.
Thank you. And I think do we still have tentative dates in January, or are they fixed dates for that special joint meeting?
For that thing, it was supposed to be, I think the talk was on the 28th, which is a Friday. Friday afternoon, heading into the evening.
1 to 9,
So-
I think, to make it open to the public or a little bit more accessible.
Yeah.
It's a 1 o'clock discussion about economic development, and about 5 o'clock we'll begin to talk about the general plan scoping.
Okay.
And that should be a robust discussion.
Is that final yet, or do we not know?
That has been locked in as of now. Yes.
Okay, so we'll need to update council calendars just as a FYI, hold the date. And then when we have the next DRC meeting, we'll need to inform, we can make an announcement about that, Phil, just so we can get some participant, because we're starting to get, I think, a lot more public comment on DRC than council is getting at public comment. So if we can bridge that gap, maybe we can get some more people to participate.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Any more exciting news? All right. Well, everybody be safe for the holiday.
Merry Christmas.
Yes. You too.
Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.